Hi friends, welcome to a new set of eyes. I'm so glad you're here this morning. It is a beautiful, cool, late summer morning here in Alpena, Michigan. So I don't know when you're going to listen to this. Wherever you're at, I just hope that you are taking a deep breath and finding a place of stillness in your soul where you can be grateful for this moment. I want to update you on something that I think I mentioned, I know I mentioned in another video, that Mark had an upcoming visit with a radiation oncologist. A little over a year ago, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. He opted for the prostatectomy. It went extremely well. The surgeons felt they got everything. Margins were clear, lymph nodes were clear. But we did find out that it was a higher grade aggressive cancer than originally thought. However, the prognosis at that time was still this could very likely be a cure with no further treatment necessary because it was a small nodule. Only, if you're familiar with prostate cancer, when they do the biopsies, they take 12 biopsies of the prostate, and 2 out of the 12 showed cancer cells. And it was a small nodule that, again, they removed the prostate, and margins clear, everything. But we found out about a year later, actually it was about 2 months ago, his PSA continued to rise. And the PSA is the blood marker that determines if there could be a cancerous process going on. It was still very low, but after a prostatectomy, there should be basically undetectable PSA because the prostate's gone. So his doctor here in Alpena, it was a urologist who he was going to just for follow-up because he was no longer being followed by an oncologist because it was considered cured. Suggested that even though it was low, because it was trending upward, it was the 3rd PSA after the surgery, that he had this special PSA PET scan that's very new. It's been out only a couple years. It can detect PSA cancer cells before even a normal PET scan or CAT scan could. And he said, it could be something, it might be nothing, because you're still kind of in the follow-up, but let's have this done anyway. So he did, and unfortunately, it did show that there was another spot of cancer on his pelvic bone. And that isn't a good thing. And so we had an appointment this week. We met with the radiation oncologist who explained to us in even more detail that yes, even though the surgery went well and they got everything, the high-grade aggressive cancer that it ended up being made it likely that this cancer would reoccur at some point. That was kind of news to us. I guess if we had read the report closely when we got it, we would see that it was a more aggressive cancer, but in my mind and in Mark's mind, they had got it all. But we know that those little pesky cancer cells can escape where they originated from and attach elsewhere, and that is what happened here. So he is undergoing, starting September 1st, radiation therapy. The good news is that because the cancer spot was so small, he's only going to need 5 radiation treatments. So we are thankful for that. But I'll be honest, it was not the news we were expecting to hear when we met with the radiation oncologist. We thought originally, because it was one of the options, and I guess you kind of hear what you want to hear, that it was still kind of remnant from the surgery, that sometimes the cells are still expressing some of the PSA, and then there was a thing called like a ectopic PSA where some of the original cells may have attached to, another place in the prostate bed, but that wasn't the case. He said surgery was fine, everything was fine. This is due simply to the aggressive stage of that cancer. And if I won't go into it all, but there's Gleason scores that they have, and there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a 7, 8, 9. And the 7, 8, 9 are considered aggressive. And the 2 nodules, even though there were only 2, that they removed or that held the cancer in the biopsy, the aggressiveness of it is what caused apparently the spread. So it's not something you want to hear that you now have metastatic prostate cancer. Thankfully, there are really good treatments, even for metastatic prostate cancer, where individuals can live, years after that if they stay diligent about following up. The treatment plan from this point forward is to zap this particular spot that they said is I think it was like 4 to 5 millimeters, and then have a 3-month follow-up and see if the PSA has gone down. And if it continues to rise, then there'll be future scans to find out where the next spots are going to appear. So that has been our week. The good news with that too is that immediately, that same day that we got that news, I had taken 2 days to do a spiritual retreat with a friend of mine. And so she came 2 hours after that. I was able to process, even though I'm still processing it with her. We were able to focus on, bringing ourselves before God and having that spiritual retreat that reminded me that life unfolds in unexpected ways. We are not in control. And people get news every day that shakes their plan for their life. And this is, I guess, our turn. So we are taking it one day at a time. I'll be honest, I am dealing with anxiety more than Mark is. And he's never been an anxious person, but he did say, that news kind of threw him, because he said, now I'm having to rethink our future. And, that even hearing him say that gives me anxiety. But fortunately, I'm learning more and more to welcome, accept, to not create stories in my mind, but to really try to bring myself into the present moment. So this is the present moment right now. I'm here with you. And in this present moment, all is well. All manner of things is well. Saying of Julian of Norwich, all shall be well, all shall be well. All manner of things shall be well. And that means something to me, because I know the wellness and the wholeness isn't contingent upon the external things. That we have that capacity to awaken, no matter what, to that place within us that is always the home of the Spirit of God. But that we sometimes let it get covered up with all of our busyness, our plans, our situations in life. And I told Mark the other night, I said, this still isn't the news that I wanted, but I have to face and welcome it in a sense of God is here. The Spirit of divine love is here, present in it. And there are hidden treasures in the midst of each day. And I'm doing my best to find them, and they're there. Really, it's not hard to see them. It's an awakening, an opening of the eyes of our heart. The name of this whole YouTube channel, the new set of eyes to see the unseen. So I just say that to say that I know we are not alone. The Spirit of the living God is here, has always been here, continues to be with us. We're thankful that Mark doesn't feel bad. And then the other good news, I'll throw this in here, he was scheduled to have double knee. It's not replacement surgery, but it's a surgery to inject artificial cartilage into the kneecaps. He didn't have to have a complete replacement because they said the ligaments and the muscles surrounding the kneecaps are good, but the knees are shot completely. The bone is the bone on bone. So he has been in a lot of knee pain. And he's still working and doing his remodeling business. So we thought that was going to have to be postponed. And obviously, to be honest, in the light of getting a metastatic cancer diagnosis, the knee thing wasn't high on my priorities, but it was on his, because he's the one having the pain and still working. We're reminded that even though it's a terminal cancer, it's not an immediate death sentence. I mean, not that none of us know when we're going to die, but the goal of the treatment is to keep it at bay as long as possible. And that as long as possible, there is no end date. I try to stay away from all the statistics and everything that you can Google online, because sometimes when we think, oh man, I've only got 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, our brain starts to sometimes believe those things. Our goal is to live our life with hopefully Mark feeling as good as possible. And obviously he is rethinking the future. I mean, when you plan for retirement, you have, retirement funds and things that how you plan to spend that. And, that is changing a little bit as he's reconsidering, how this plays into that. So I know I'm kind of rambling this morning, but I appreciate your prayers. Any positive thoughts, love, energy, light, healing you can send our way. I greatly appreciate it. So I just wanted to update you on that. And God is still good. In some ways, I look at the fact that, my friend was coming for this 2-day retreat. It was exactly what my soul needed. Because had she not been here, I just would have been like yapping at Mark the whole time. How do you feel? What are we going to do? I'm sad. I was crying. It was like he didn't need that right then. He was processing too. And we process things completely differently. So I think I would have just stressed him out. And my friend was able to listen to me. And the good thing is, after just talking about it for a couple times, she listened patiently, we were able to really then just be in the presence of God, of divine love, of awakening deeper, more fully to this life that is abundant, that is rich, whether we have it for 100 years or 50 years or 30 years. It's a rich, beautiful gift in which we can know ourselves as God knows us. And we can live in a grace and an abundance. And I'm not talking about abundance of finances and jobs and material possessions, but the abundance of peace and joy. And it just reminds me of the mystery of God, that we can't attach and cling to anything in this world. Because when we do, we kind of create our own suffering. When those things that we cling to, we begin to feel ourselves losing grip on them. So I just want to end today saying thank you. And again, I'll just, I know I shared a poem or a prayer in a recent one, the welcoming prayer. I won't read it again, but it's one of the more recent ones if you want to hear it. But it's about welcoming all that comes my way today without trying to change anything. I know that sounds counterproductive in our we've got to change everything world, change our life, change our looks, change our money, change our homes, change everything. Stop. rest, and be present to the moment just as it is. Because when we look at something, even if it's something we don't want, and we begin to see it through eyes of God, of grace, of courage, of strength, of peace, it changes everything that matters. And that's internal. So, thanks for listening. Appreciate your prayers. Take care.